What's the Muma Kasa, and then the Chief Justice Torkonoo, as your Bekasa. One Kasa would see why you bonnet. Now we were you social media so, and we cook Disica, and on the nuclear vacation, and on the back of vacation, and our essay, and our essay, maybe I would take a crowd. Chief Justice Akasa. I go substitute for. Messi, so be me a subscribe button so. Now I click a bell notification icon so. Now follow ye. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, gossip24.com, and the gossip24 things. Also, and I make for Tatap Send and idea ma. Ubetimi send this card through Tatap Send app and the App Store, any Play Store, download the app no, or USA or Canada available or UK available Europe hefa now Hungary, Malta, Czech Republic hefa and Europe Tatap Send UAE, Dubai, Tata Send, and Honomoso. Send this car and one for through Tata Send app. The currency reference code no AJ24. It's Chief Justice Muina Mokaya on the 22nd of April, Tuesday. And then the amount for petitions from Mudokoto is Excellency John Roman Mahama Enim or Shady or Sino. Petition you young kind weird. The name was a type of committee. No more quantity petition is a petition in Muslim. No. Name in the meantime, no Chief Justice Torkonoo. Mr. Tonight check a crack, my. Na yen hwe petition mu kakra into the Chief Justice yes suspended no am say Chief Justice e dey nsem back me bi akọ court e ma court ruling na abayi na no nsem de bi wa ya na ato afa window mu ebi ho ha na ato afa fom am say ni na no ebubo Chief Justice na no e na the Chief Justice ka say about 3 o'clock obekasa about 3 o'clock obekasa into the Chief Justice ekokasa the Chief Justice e kasa no so hwe baby omoni me kokko gina kra o mo say committee o ma set up committee o mo ka masem no ma me kai mo Mumure fi history. June 30th of June 1981. A hono buku a judge for. Who can say na pay bika ho? Sam aqua. Me wo fa no sa papa na hwe me.
The Edu Lodge facility that the hearings are being conducted in featured very prominently in the planning of the murder of judges on June 30th, 1981. And this can be read about in the special investigative report on that terrible event in our nation's history. It will be recalled that there was a Major Samapa, a military officer who was killed with the 3 High Court justices, who was the Director of Human Resource of GEHO. He was my uncle and my guardian when I entered the University of Ghana in September 1980. I was also living with him at the time he was abducted and murdered. Was Edu Lodge chosen for my inquiry to make me feel insecure? I think so. And I continue to hold the view that there's no reason why a judicial hearing is being conducted behind the high walls of Edu Lodge.
It's a no one's a Chief Justice. I emotional crowd to say na okojina hono na memories upon memories. Bring back memories, bring back no wafa, no wakai. So ho eno omubo a judge photo na no wafa ka ho bi. Nti a hono ko omekogina no symbolism. Eno we use wo literature busa no said ebia de omodi eno wafa no eno a no omodi ba be no we literature student na wate ase. No Senior committee ne set up no mototo na no won sema ekoso say petition ni ade no ohun ni say say na ohin Nebukadnezar sena no osi ye na ade wo Bible mu Daniel 50 chapter 1 na akọ no sa
supposedly on subpoenas without the issue of subpoenas just come and swear oaths and present documents to the committee as exhibits. The witnesses themselves do not have the petition. They do not know the allegations in the petition. And so they cannot answer questions on the petition. And when they finish submitting their documents, my lawyers are called on to cross-examine them. Since 23rd May 2025, this strange process has been followed up and witness after witness has been called. Like Nebuchadnezzar's situation, in which he demanded that the magicians in his court should tell him his dream and also interpret it.
Now evidence in our crowd media kwakwatina committee so no creba ko credit no
because the clear danger is that through this flagrant violation of CI 47 and the darkness of the games being held in camera behind the walls of a village, My lawyers and I can come to the end of the proceedings. The evidence will show that every one of those allegations in the petitions that were given to me on 27th March is unfounded and untrue.
No, the answer or yes, our press conference, we now see our say Mumu Bekasano, because some of Muka, I found it at so if you want media, Nimo, Mwati be, Mwaken can be, Mohubi, YouTube, TikTok, social media, Sonia, and or say, no crack.
The committee can dig up some allegation from whatever documents they claim to be having from the president, which they have not shown to me, and purport to enter a recommendation on that basis. To say that this is totally unknown in the rule of law in this country. If it was lawful, I would have no reason to alert the nation of the dangers they represent. It is the violations of law that have forced me to bring these matters out.
Now, Obabeka say Ukrano, none now for being fair, no, say Chief Justice. And Saba, now say me in Jamu, Torkonoo, oh, fine name, but no, be no fear. Better cook, when we low. Justice, maybe Muso Freno, no more 13, Massa, so win Chief Justice, and you man found to her, the debate no resigning.
It would be best if I just retired or resigned, rather than subject myself to an ill-motivated process. Also received threats and veiled threats to the effect that if I fail to resign or retire voluntarily, I will be made to suffer some harm or the other.
But no, regardless of a foothold, any amount for most threatening or any adeno, was also say amount for be crack can be the answer say, I didn't question the to say a political agenda or much on person who you Chief Justice if you need now what's it, but omwa because Cecilia be a senior do so person resign go to me resign because of what can send their tone so I also you one. And then man who quite says I'm real more than the Coco Gina committee him no and Obabe resign it and I so back Obabe retirement into assembly dear. Send on with the committee no or Mecca copim said the crano ebededi and I say be a committee be so.
Let me assure everybody that I am not seeking to cling to a title or a position. However, as a lawyer of 38 years standing, a judge of 21 years standing, and Chief Justice who has served the rule of law all my working life, in fact since I was 25, it is my onerous duty and obligation to speak up concerning anything that is extremely wrong with the administration of justice in this country. This is what I do every day. The situation I have been confronted with has shown me a model of injustice that I would never have thought possible if I had not been exposed to it. This is why, despite great personal discomfort, I have decided to marshal every effort in law and leadership to answer to this situation. Again, resigning or retiring while Article 146 proceedings are being conducted to remove a judge is not an option any judge or public official can even have.
Because ojutu mudia o chile bi no o meka ko tell bi aka say ye kraye boni o ye ti no e no akasa de ne niwo e resign ye nti o ma sa chance no e bomo nkasa e fa ntone so.
That the wild and unfounded allegations were not defended because they were true and I had no chance to defend. As Chief Justice of the nation, who has been given the privilege and obligation to lead administration of justice, I should not turn tail and run when I know the implications of not defending false and unwarranted charges.
It's an Chief Justice. Shasi, you some no. It was okay. The first person on the list, Daniel Ofori. Daniel Ofori petition or tray. But I said ye no be Daniel Ofori petition ni mo no. Onim maybe Daniel Ofori ni ko nya answer me na any free any. But for every single claim beyond Daniel Ofori make your petition or not the response beba. Did kai Daniel Ofori say or no as Chief Justice no Daniel Ofori no a case at the High Court any idea any command judge for because no chief justice no interest maybe we interest judge no te wa asem so no na judge na nya family crisis we nya serious issue e wo nebusu ma wo ko enti na judge ne be sere kwan ne ye de wa asem ne call different judge ho no baby I don't know for years
Chief Justice because I transferred the case in which he's the party from one judge in the High Court. That is a crime. What Mr. Okori did not seem to know, which I stated in my answer to that allegation, is that the judge his case was transferred had a family crisis and had to leave Ghana for an extended period. Only reason why cases were handling being cases were distributed to other judges.
You know, Daniel Forey say, or no be a chief justice no, and I or then Kulu 2 quine any idea what I say, almost as so crampo say, and no chief justice no, on man of $14,000 be, MOD 2 quine buy no, one, I say $14,000. First of all, much $14,000. No, or 2 quine buy no. 2 days, within 2 days, and or file sa report no more cano. Because $14,000 or more demand no, or 2 quine no, or the $4,400 per no the $9,600 no, or the car report no, as I the buy.
Allegation that I failed to retire accountable interest of $14,000 when I traveled. When I did retire that accountable interest 2 days after I returned from my journey, I was given $14,000. I could only spend $4,400, and I returned $9,600 2 days after I returned from Ghana from my journey.
But Sandy Kuno and any banner some mokano travel policy no, and you know you. Yes, a travel policy. I will say Chief Justice. I feel the annual vacations me you would bet to be didn't pay me na account home. And for security reasons, though, and no one say Chief Justice no one to quite. It's your my policy. That's our policy na all this one. No, most had no didn't kunu and answer the back way. Then you will fully.
That in my conditions of appointment as Chief Justice, Ghana graciously gave me 2 vacations in a year. In the Judicial Service travel policy, since 2010, the Chief Justice can never travel alone for security reasons. And the Chief Justice is always allowed to travel with a spouse or another person of their choice. So traveling on my officially given vacations with my husband on one occasion and my daughter for the second vacation is part of the official conditions of my appointment as Chief Justice. I was also not responsible for buying the tickets in question, such that I could be said to have misappropriated the value of the tickets. Indeed, if the Judicial Service was not allowed to buy the tickets for my vacation, the remedy was for the Auditor General to surcharge me to refund the money. Anyone can check out the 2023 accounts of Judicial Service and know for themselves that there is no surcharge against me or anyone for the tickets that were purchased for my vacations. Ms. Ofori seems to be alleging that I should have traveled with my police escort alone on vacation and not a family member. And this is why he wants me removed from office. And I'm being tried or held behind the walls of Edu Lodge. Ladies and gentlemen, the question to be asked is, why would anyone demand that I go on vacation given to me as Chief Justice with my police security, instead of going with my husband or my daughter? And how can this be a reason for subjecting a Chief Justice to a committee of inquiry? In the petition I received, Mr. Ofori also complains that my family members should not have been given per diem when they traveled with me, and I have misappropriated the per diem they were given. But anyone reading the Judicial Service travel policy will find that it provides that when the Chief Justice travels with anyone, whether police escort, another judge, secretary, or a spouse, that person is given per diem.
After so Daniel Ofori, raise some allegations be. Say, no, what terminating Kofor, in Kofor, also promote your one man where you with him, a beauty say, your friend say, judicial secretary, say, or Baba judge, and what double the responsibilities, any idea. Some of them in some Daniel Ofori cannot, Daniel Ofori, if you say, or no, and June 2023, year no more appointing as Chief Justice. June 2023, and 70 or Honoma, and 10 years ago, and a committee crowds and assembly so 10 years ago. I didn't know for years.
He also alleges that I have refused to reinstate 2 members of staff whose appointments were terminated around 2015, 10 years ago, when I was nowhere near being Chief Justice, and whose issues are still being heard in court. He goes on to allege that I should be removed for terminating the appointment of 2 staff members who went through disciplinary proceedings that were initiated by reports against them before I became Chief Justice. Though it is not clear to me why Mr. Ofori should demand that the Chief Justice should be removed for transferring a member of staff or be the final authority to sign any termination letter, I handed over to His Excellency the President records covering every administrative step on these matters. Another allegation of Mr. Ofori is that I appointed the former Judicial Secretary as Judicial Secretary when she was a judge, and so I have made her inefficient. Now, anybody who cares to know the records which I handed over to His Excellency the President was that she became Judicial Secretary in 2018. She became a judge in 2019. I was nowhere near being Chief Justice. I was appointed in June 2023. Ms. Ofori also alleges that I have appointed judges as registrars, and this has introduced inefficiency into the management of courts.
No, so there are even some of the changes or no as Chief Justice no, or by a Chief Justice no, and just implementation will make it because now I didn't go through the Judicial Council there.
He complains that I supervise the Judicial Secretary to administer a decision of the General Legal Council, which was taken before I became Chief Justice.
Now, for so appointment of justices, no, or no Chief Justice, Justice Torkonoo, no, a influence appointment of justice in Kofu was and Komudiamuko Supreme Court. No, say appointment of justices, no, and your bodies me as a kabumo, and Oma nominate candidates. Now say ko do president ni na say president no say on pay way on person or do we go Supreme Court. Or no Chief Justice no. Now say.
Then he complains that I recommended judges to be appointed to the Supreme Court, so I should be removed as Chief Justice. Now, anyone who knows how appointments are made with recommendations from the Ghana Bar Association, the Attorney General, and the Chief Justice will know that this last complaint only shows ignorance of a very long-standing tradition. It has been the settled practice for decades that in the recommendation of justices for the superior courts, it is the Chief Justice, the Ghana Bar Association, and the Attorney General who have the privilege of making recommendations for those who are to be nominated. The recommendations can be refused or accepted by the President.
It's allegations that Daniel Ofori ni no. Response at Chief Justice, suspended Chief Justice, Torkonoo, any man. Fast forward, na Chief Justice, okay, or quite a younger dear so. Moyi a younger dear, bra. A younger than the end also. Into a younger than the Kitwebi. No, say a younger. First of all, a younger see November, 14th of November, case be called so. It was Supreme Court. Now, after ruling, no. Omochi or no a younger no. And no Chief Justice no. And fan share reporting no. But a younger nakasa. I want the petition now filing here right? Or making reference to platform be our friend in the law. Some platform now a younger make reference to no. A report come much and say a younger here the was Supreme Court after say ruling or with the ruling by no. A younger here the it's war honomo and normal police for so a younger no and the coy.
There's also a gentleman a petition from a gentleman called Mr. Ayamga Akogo. His complaint is that on 14th November 2024, after the Supreme Court had given a ruling which went against him, I, as presiding judge in the Supreme Court, ordered his arrest without any reason. He attached an exhibit to his petition, which was a media report from a group called the Law Platform. This media report says that after the Supreme Court panel had ruled against Mr. Akogo, he started to shout in the courtroom, and that is why he was taken out of the courtroom. Essentially, therefore, his own exhibit contradicts his claims. Mr. Akogo goes on to claim that when he applied for a copy of the day's proceedings, which were signed by all the judges that presided on his case, he did not see a record that he had been arrested. So I should be removed as Chief Justice.
But I got the issue, and then want to say, one fan can report no. Meanwhile, in the power or can judge for no, I just almost send sign. Ruling no, I buy a court on not Justice Puaman Ekahubi. No, most signs are ruling no. Final ruling no. Any final report on me. Justice Puaman Kahubi. It's here about to say, and justices almost Supreme Court, our new Chief Justice. Atina Samson no maka. No we in our sign ye. Na ayanga say or no Chief Justice no war asem. Meanwhile, Justice Puaman, our work committee no. Or no so sign be.
What is significant about this petition is that Justice Puaman sat with me as one of the judges who heard Mr. Akogo's case and was named as a witness that Mr. Akogo will call.
The Honor Chief Justice say, Oje will be an on Tiasi. Oje will be an on Tiasi.
But His Excellency the President has appointed him to chair and inquire into this petition, and he has accepted to do so.
But Chief Justice, so the F younger than 20. Near go shining star for so. Because we want a group be so, as someone from shining star so much petition. First of all, or search it, why you boot search, Google, or search TikTok, or search Facebook, or search X, or search Skype, or search OnlyFans, or search Clubhouse, Hefa, or search me beer, group be anyone who say shining star.
The last petition is from a group called Shining Stars. Searches have shown that no such group is registered in Ghana.
At Shining Star for Asemo Musi Omonen Ewo, and he say, Honorable Alexander Fayumakin and Sembi Mono, or no Chief Justice no, Eka me up with a decision. To say, Omuhuni say, ruling nearby, no, in favor of Honorable Alexander Fayum. No, say,
and they claim that during the hearing of the case of Afenyo-Markin versus Attorney General and the Speaker of Parliament, when I sat as a judge, I failed to hear the side of the Speaker of Parliament before the Supreme Court made an order, so I should be removed as Chief Justice.
Supreme Court, hui. So Justice is at na asem Supreme Court a judge for no. So mo tena asem so a. Enye ni papa akon tena asem so. E was say odd number 5. What I say? I thought there be 7. I thought there be 9. Enti ade na ade a 5 judges na atena so no. Say ruling about what say you or no. No there's any vote about me.
Again, I can only point to the fact that no judge sits alone in the Supreme Court, and the court's decisions are the decisions of all the judges who sit together.
But on who say Samri game we play now no, and it's a macacrass on the new rule eba ebe protect chief justices any idea. We who say I say a chess game be no mobile. Some person mu yi or no chief justice no. Oh, nkofo ya mo isi a mo te committee ni so no. Ayi so mo yi or no chief justice ne film. Nene de. Omo de sa rule ne ba no mo de protect new chief justice obeba no. Because omo nim said omo yesisi ana enye. Into omo de sa rule ne ba de protect omo.
Interestingly, there have been some recent suggestions about rules being made to safeguard judges from frivolous attempts to remove them from office. It sounds like an attempt to assure the judiciary that after unconstitutional and illegal means have been used to remove me, conditions will be made safer for those who help with it or those who may be afraid by the current occurrences. Despite the interesting new discussions of rules for removing judges, I am convinced that it is only a matter of time for the nation's democracy to experience the bitter harvest of what I am reporting on.
But on the say ban the bonnet padia on your bonnet into way and a roke, Ghana for Nina, NTP Mano. A high gossip 24. Where the gospel according to your Chief Justice, suspended Chief Justice, Justice Torkonoo.